my name's Gary Burgess, and welcome to Holding Court, the Jersey Law Podcast. Joining me, my expert guide, partner and family law expert at Viberts, it's Advocate Rose Colley. Good to see you again.
And you, Gary.
And Rose, I was going to tweet you or send you a messenger message to let you know the theme for this episode, but I thought I'd just tell you face to face because it's good to talk. We're talking social media and electronic communication.
We are.
And I'm guessing a few pitfalls and pratfalls along the way.
Yes.
When it comes to all the things we've been talking around family law, a lot of this has been quite legalistic and rules-based. We tip social media accounts into the mix.
We do.
I can imagine that could cause chaos.
It can cause chaos, absolutely.
Tell me more.
Well, I think in the days when I was young, when you had to write a letter, and that was really the only means of communication apart from walking down to the telephone box, you sort of thought it through and you probably weren't as annoyed. And then I think we've all done it. We've started a letter, then we've torn it up. We've decided not to send it. It gives space and time. But of course, in recent years, we've moved to a whole array of electronic means of communicating. And with that has come a huge array of things that can cause problems.
And have you noticed that as you're dealing with clients who are dealing with the breakdown of their relationship, that I don't know whether social media plays a part in the downfall of the relationship, but during this process of the breakdown, that social media messaging, an angry email all written in caps lock, a sly WhatsApp is just making a bad situation worse?
I think it can play a part in two ways. It became obvious, certainly a few years ago, that social media increasingly probably plays a part in the end or the breakup of the relationship, or becomes maybe the reason for the breakup. And then it's how social media is used once the breakup has happened.
Let's pick that apart then. So the first part, is that, for example, finding an email or a message from your partner that it is pretty evident they're having an affair?
Oh, yes. I mean, the things some people find are quite mind-blowing in terms of, you think, why would you say that in a text message? Particularly if your wife or your partner or your husband knows your password on your phone, for example. I mean, the photographs some people send by text message is often quite remarkable as well. And of course, there are many, many cases of the other partner finding them, or they may be able to track that they're on an online dating agency, and they may be able to find that out through even the joint bank statement. So they may find it out quite innocently, and suddenly they see a payment to whatever the online dating agency is, and they think, really? What is that? And then that starts them to become really quite suspicious, and then it all goes horribly wrong.
And again, we're still talking about leading up to the breakdown of a relationship, never mind what comes next. I think it's so important that people realize everything we do, and I use social media on a daily basis, but it's out there. It is like putting a billboard in the middle of town. Even if I think it's in a fairly private network among my friends, all it takes is for one to take a screen grab. It could go like wildfire.
Absolutely. So you have to remember that by putting anything on social media, you're A, broadcasting it to the world, and B, it actually can never be got rid of completely. It's always going to be out there somewhere. It can always be found.
And is it future evidence? Is that something that is looked at by courts or in proceedings where once upon a time it had to be a piece of parchment? Actually, no, I sent a tweet at 1:23 in the morning after a double JD and Coke, Your Honour, that can be used.
It can be used, and it can be used in a number of ways. I mean, the most obvious ways are proof of adultery or unreasonable behaviour in divorce proceedings, but it can also be used in terms of spending habits. It can be used in terms of evidence of excessive spending, for example. It can be used very often to show that you're also in another relationship, because again, people don't even think when they post photographs very often. And it can be used in a way whereby ultimately it can have a detrimental effect on the children.
Can it also be used to paint a picture of your character? If someone was wanting to piece together things you've posted to show you may have a controlling nature, or you may have anger issues, or whatever it may be that they're trying to prove, is it admissible and can it be used in that way?
It can be used in family proceedings, and very often it will be used, particularly in relation to bad behaviour or controlling behaviour, or it can also be used to show that you're simply not willing to compromise or negotiate or reach a solution. So, for example, if I say, I accept we've got a problem, we need to go to mediation, and you then say to me, absolutely no chance, go away, then that's not very productive.
And
And
again,
it can be used against you.
it's beginning to paint that picture as well. The other side of this is when the relationship has broken down and then that process is underway to reach whatever that resolution is, whether it's divorce or whatever separation it may be. I guess there might be a temptation to send a text message going, well, I think your lawyer's an idiot and misrepresenting you, or raising the
worse.
temperature, or worse. That does not seem helpful.
No, it isn't helpful. And people just need to be so careful. So if the relationship's broken down, they've got a new partner. I've known this to happen a few times. They go on holiday. They then post all these wonderful photographs of them in plush hotels, when of course we could leave the island. Again, then gives me as the lawyer for the other side an indication that you may have more money than you're saying that you have. So you're saying you didn't get a bonus this year, but did you? Because you couldn't have afforded that holiday otherwise. So I want to see a letter from your employer to say you didn't get a bonus. And very often we will find that, in fact, you may have got a bonus, or you may have cashed in a pension, or you may have put money into someone else's account, very often the new partners. So I can't automatically see it. So people just need to be so careful. And I think Facebook, Instagram can tell you an awful lot about lifestyle. It used to be said that the best way of showing someone's lifestyle were their credit card statements, but now it's credit card statements and all their very often lovely photographs.
And can these things, for example, posing for that holiday whilst you're in the middle of a separation process, can that materially affect the financial settlement that you're working to?
It can do, particularly in cases where there's this feeling that he or she is not being honest about their finances. And because very often these things are to do with needs, as we discussed previously, then the photographs can show that you are meeting your needs. Or, of course, they can show that you are in a relationship with someone else that you've denied.
Why do people do it? It sounds so obvious that you're incriminating yourself, or that you are escalating tensions and making a bad situation worse, that you are maybe dragging out proceedings that are then just going to cost you more in the long run.
Mm,
Yet people still do these things.
I think there's probably a variety of answers to that. One, I think social media operates in a way whereby, unlike me writing a letter, it all happens instantly. And once you've pushed send, then it's probably, or it is too late. I think there genuinely are some people who are just stupid and don't think through the implications of what they do. There are some people who really don't care and don't think this could look bad. So I think there is this whole variety of why people do things. One of the big tips that I always tell people with social media and using social media is, if you've had a few gin and tonics, for example, and you're feeling brave to say things that you probably wouldn't send in the morning, look at it again in the morning before you send it, because almost certainly in the morning you'll have a very different view to the view that you had at 1 o'clock in the morning.
I think that's really wise advice. It's something I've personally held in all situations to do with emails, which is, if you're going to send an angry email, write the angry email and then delete the angry email so it's left your fingers, you've done it, and then write the sensible email.
yeah,
And it just brings
yeah.
it down. And again, it's the equivalent of sleeping on it and not doing it after that gin and
Absolutely.
tonic.
But people so often don't. I mean, the number of texts, emails that are sent in the early hours of the morning probably far outweigh those sent at 10 o'clock in the morning.
And do you have to explicitly say to your client, for goodness sake, stop? Don't do this. Don't send that WhatsApp. Don't do that Messenger. Don't do that Facebook. Don't do that Twitter, whatever it may be. Stop.
You do. Very often, because people just don't think, or they do it once, it may have no repercussions, it makes them feel better, and it just then potentially becomes more and more of a problem.
And it can be quite addictive. And if it's gone okay the first time, maybe it'll go okay the next time. However, what you're saying is it might not go okay the next time.
It may not go okay the next time.
Now, all of this is in danger of denying reality. We do just live in a digital world.
do.
Like it or not, it's not the carrier pigeon anymore. It's not the telegram. It's not the phone box down the road with a 10-pence piece when we hear the pips. People operate in this digital space. Are there any, I don't know, safer digital spaces that people can operate in, where things can happen in a less heated way, even when you're going through separation? Or is it just everything you've said about engaging brain and not
I
writing
think
things
it's
you
partly
regret?
that. I think email is probably safer because, one, they tend to be slightly longer, hopefully. Two, I think most people, when they're at work and they write emails, will write in proper language and sentences. So therefore, the thought process goes into them. And I think that often comes across in personal emails as well. So I think emails are slightly slower in that you may draft something, you may put it into your drafts and then think about it in the morning. You can't do that with text messages or tweets or things on Facebook in the same way.
So, are there things we can do to try and avoid this in the first place? I know, some couples share their passwords because they're so trusting and everything's wonderful and it will never go wrong. Should we be doing that in the first place?
I think the answer is ideally not, because some people have so many email accounts, for example, they often forget that their other half does have their password, or that it may have been a joint account, whatever. But I think once the relationship breaks down, people must change their passwords, but so many people absolutely don't. They forget. So very often you're sending an email. As soon as you send it, your ex is seeing what you've said. And that can even go down to things like what you're saying to your lawyer. I certainly had a case not a million years ago when one party was able still to get into all the emails and all the legal advice and all the tactics that he or she were discussing with their lawyer. And even though I couldn't read them, it meant that effectively you were giving away all your secrets in terms of how you were going to conduct the ongoing divorce proceedings.
And it just sounds obvious when you put it like that. It's the equivalent of changing the locks on a door. At that point, you don't want any of that access to continue if you are suddenly escalating this separation.
Yeah, but as I said, lots of people don't. Some people don't think it's important. Some people forget. And yeah, some people, I mean, I always tell clients that this is something they need to do. But I think often people don't necessarily get that advice and it just sort of drifts on.
As with elsewhere in this series, I wrap up by challenging you to give me 3 top tips. So when it comes to social media, oh my word, I think we all need to really listen to this. Rose, your 3 top tips around social media.
My 3 top tips are, if potentially you are cheating on your partner, make sure that you're really, really careful in terms of what you're leaving in emails, text messages, for example. Make sure that your partner doesn't have access to your passwords, let's say on your phone or your laptop. Secondly, I think remember that even what seem to be very innocent things like posing for photographs in a lovely place may come back and bite you in terms of finances. So it can be really important not to do that. But I think the main tip is that if you are using social media, think and pause, and whatever you do not send messages that, again, may well affect you really badly in any matrimonial or children litigation that will, they just come back and bite you. So just think, just be careful. Try and think back to the times when you would be writing that letter and then screwing it up and starting again. And whatever you do, don't do any of that when you've had too much to drink. Because some of the worst cases that I've seen have happened when people get this sort of added confidence after a few drinks and they think it's fine. And in the morning, they feel absolutely dreadful about what they've said.
I think the only thing I'm going to share on social media in the coming hours is your 3 top tips. That's my plan. I feel like I'm in very safe territory doing exactly that. Rose, thank you so much.
Gary.
Advocate Rose Colley, partner and family law expert at Viberts. And that is the end of this series. I hope you've enjoyed what you've heard. I've learned so much. Please share wherever you can, far and wide, so we can spread this rich knowledge from Rose, but also get in touch to let us know what you'd like to hear about in future, because we'd love to do that as well. For now, thank you for joining us. Holding Court. It's the Jersey Law Podcast.